Dashcam battery packs. What are they? What do they do? Why would I want one? Where would I even install one? And how do these two battery packs compare? Can't I just use a portable battery pack instead of one of these? Like, why would I want to spend so much money on one of these? Well, we're going to try and answer that and more. We also put these two battery packs through a crazy test. We actually take a cooler and filled it all up with ice, and I put these two units in a Ziploc bag after they were fully charged. And what we wanted to see is whether or not we would still get the same longevity that's expected of these units in freezing cold temperatures. And I can tell you it was below 0 degrees in there. We also have winter coming up right away, so I thought this would be a very good thing for people who live in the prairies or live in a state that is very cold. Anyways, I'm Ben from Safe Drive Solutions, your dash cam specialists. Let's go. What do they do, and why would I want one? Well, with a hardwired dash camera hooked up in parking mode, the constant discharge on the battery over a long period of time can cause wear and tear. The battery pack only draws power to charge when you are driving the vehicle, which prevents damage to the vehicle's battery over time. With the ignition off, the dash camera relies solely on the battery pack for power, eliminating the need to draw power from the vehicle's battery completely. Now, the main reason why typically people would want this is they're worried about having something happen to them while they're parked. And what I mean by this is, let's say you work 8 hours downtown and you're worried about someone backing into you, hitting you, keying your vehicle, vandalism. Lots of different scenarios can take place. And without a battery pack, you can't ensure that you're going to be able to record any of these incidents because a lot of times your battery is not going to support long periods of time for your dash camera to record while parked. Unless you get like a Thinkware unit that has like energy saving mode that draws very low current, but then again, that's only going to record if there's an impact. If you're worried about motion detection, which draws a lot more current, you need to have a battery pack in order to actually draw on a frequent basis, or I mean, record on a frequent basis, not draw. Because what ends up happening is I always advise my customers, and that's why we do sell certain dash cameras that we do, is to probably put it on 3 or 6 hour parking mode tops so it has less wear and tear on your battery. And if you're driving frequently, you should be fine. But a lot of dash cameras on the market will allow you to record 24 hours a day. The problem is, what happens is it beats your battery up, and now all of a sudden it starts recording for 10 minutes. And it basically becomes ineffective for recording anything while parked. And if you had a battery pack, then at least you could have it recording 24 hours a day, provided you are driving at least 55 minutes a day to fully charge that battery pack. Is lithium phosphate better than a lithium ion? The lithium phosphate battery has the edge over lithium ion, both in terms of cycle life, it'll last 4 to 5 times longer, and safety. This is a key advantage because lithium ion batteries can overheat and even catch fire, while lithium phosphate does not. So, what is the life expectancy of a lithium phosphate battery? Well, life expectancy is one of the biggest perks, if not the biggest perk of lithium phosphate. Our lithium batteries are rated to last around 5,000 cycles. That is 10 years or so, and often more, depending on usage, of course. Even after those 5,000 cycles, our lithium phosphate batteries can still function at 70% capacity, and better still, you can discharge past 80% without a single use or issue. Lead acid batteries tend to gas out when discharged past 50%. So, this was actually taken off of lithiumhub.com. And this is a lot of the common questions that people ask about these style battery packs. So I hope that helps you. Hopefully that answers some questions. Anyways, let's keep going. So Ben, I was thinking about getting one of these. Where would I even install one of these in my vehicle? Well, that's a great question. So Some of the most common places that we install these battery packs is usually under the driver or passenger seat. A lot of times there's already factory wiring going directly to your seat for heated seats or for airbag sensors or other miscellaneous wiring. So what we actually do is typically mount it underneath there, and we actually tie strap to some of that factory wiring that is already running underneath there just to have it nice and clean. Now, not every vehicle can the battery pack be mounted under those seats. So then we typically resort to our other options, which would be mounting it in the hatch or mounting it in the trunk. Those are typically the common places. Some vehicles may involve us having to make some other decisions, but those typically are the four most popular places. I'll just repeat them again. It's going to be under the driver or passenger seat, in the trunk, or in the hatch. And those are the most common places that we typically mount it. Now, you might also be wondering, how do we mount these down? Is there fancy brackets? Do I have to create all these fancy mounts? Well, believe it or not, coming from the car audio field, it's a little bit weird for me. I'm used to like having to screw down into things, and we have to like mount wood or make a bracket or something like that. But actually all it is it comes with two pieces of Velcro. And what you do is you actually stick it to the bottom of the actual battery pack, and just make sure that where you're mounting it is a good place. Typically you're mounting it directly to the carpet of the vehicle and mounting it right down. There is no mounting feet, so you can't screw it into anything. There's no brackets. It literally is, like I said, two pieces of Velcro. So let's talk about these two battery packs, the Thinkware IVOLT XTRA and the Blackvue B130X. So both of these units are rated at 7,500 milliamp hours, but there are some little subtle differences between the two. One, for instance, is if you actually have the IVOLT XTRA in the standard charging or the low switch, right? Which, as you can see right here, there's actual switch for low and for high. So if you have it in the low mode, it's going to get you about max 6.5 amps, and it's going to take about 100 minutes to charge the unit completely. Now, if you have it in the high switch, it's going to get max about 13 amps, and it's going to take about 55 minutes to charge the battery pack fully. Now, when we look at the Blackvue battery pack, it only has an on or off switch, and that's it. And basically what that is, it somehow detects whether or not you're using like a cigarette lighter adapter, which is like this, which will actually plug directly into the unit, or whether or not you've hardwired it directly with one of these that comes right in the box on the Blackvue. And it will actually either do 7.2 amps with the cigarette lighter adapter or 13 amps in the fast charging, and will take approximately 90 minutes with the cigarette lighter adapter or 50 minutes being hardwired. Now, basically, when we're looking at these two units, we put them directly into the cooler, as you've seen earlier in the video, and we actually tested these over a couple days. And what we did find is the Thinkware IVOLT XTRA actually lasted for about 31 and a half hours, and the Blackvue B130X lasted about 32 hours. Now, the Blackvue did last a little longer, but the reason why it lasted longer is because I didn't have the motion detection setting turned on, and it was drawing about 10 milliamps less than the draw on the IVOLT XTRA. Now, just to do some simple math here, we're going to take the 7,500 milliamp hours, and we're going to divide it by 230 milliamp hours. And when you divide it by 230 milliamp hours, which is the draw in parking mode average from the iRoad X11, you get 32.6 hours. Okay, so we're doing that, and that's about average parking mode time we should get off of these battery packs. So if we want to take another dash camera and you know what the parking mode is, just take the total the total milliamp hours rating of the battery pack, which is 7,500. We want to divide that by the current draw, right? And then we're going to get our approximate hours. So 32.6 hours, and we got about 31 and a half and 32. So it was close. It wasn't 100% accurate, but it is a very good average idea of what you're going to get in terms of how long it will last in parking mode. Okay. Now, there are some minor differences between these two units. So let's talk about that. So when we actually look at the Blackvue, like I said earlier, it only has an on-off switch. It has a USB output, and it has your hookups for your dash camera, which is power, ground, and ignition, which you need to hardwire to the parking mode cable. Which means that depending on the dash camera you have, you are going to need to purchase a parking mode cable if it does not come in the box in order to actually make use of the battery pack. Okay, and then it has the heavy duty gauge wiring, which needs to be hooked up to ignition and ground. Okay, now what I don't like about the Blackvue is that it needs to be hooked up to ignition and ground. On most of these newer vehicles that are on the market, they don't have high current ignition anymore. So if you're buying a newer vehicle, they typically have very low gauge wiring, like an 18 or 22 or like 20 gauge wires for the ignition wire, which means there's no way you're going to be able to hook up a battery pack to that. And even if you go to the fuse box, most of these newer vehicles have very limited ignition outputs, and if they do, they're like 5 amp, 10 amp rated, which means they're never ever going to actually power a battery pack, which in turn means that you need to use a relay. So this is kind of where a lot of the other battery packs unfortunately fall short. So if you're not familiar with relays and you're not a professional installer, you're going to have to use a relay, and a relay is going to have to be wired in such a way where it's hooked up to constant power and you're using ignition to actually trigger the relay. So this is where I really like the Thinkware IVOLT XTRA, which is why it's Safe Drive Solutions' #1 choice for a battery pack at this point in time. So the main reason why is, well, we're just going to show you here. It has the same connector that we already seen, where one gets hooked up to power, one hooks up to ground. Now the difference is one gets hooked up to constant power and one gets hooked up to ground, not ignition. Notice how I didn't say ignition. I said constant power and ground. And the main reason why is this one wire here. On the IVOLT XTRA, it has this little small green wire, which you need to hook up to accessory or an ignition input. And what happens is this triggers the battery pack to tell it when it needs to be charging while driving. While the other one, it doesn't have that. So what I really like about this is in the majority of vehicles, you can find a high current wire to hook up to quite easily. Well, you can't just do that with the Blackvue, unfortunately, and a lot of the other ones that are on the market. So the other thing is like it has the normal power, ground, ignition wires, which get hooked up to a parking mode cable, very similar to what I was just showing you on the Blackvue B130X. Now, there's another added benefit. Like I've already talked about, there is the ignition input, which I love. Personally, for me, from an installer standpoint, I love that it has the green wire ignition input. But the other thing is if you buy a Thinkware dash camera, there is this input. This input right here will plug directly in to the battery input on a Thinkware dash camera. And I'm just trying to think of where my Thinkware dash camera is. Here we go. Here is the U3000. So on the U3000, right at the top, you're going to see this little battery input. So what happens is we can actually plug this directly in to the battery input right here. And now what happens is when your vehicle turns off to go into parking mode, it will say,
the remaining of IVOLT battery is about 70%.
So that's kind of cool that it will actually tell you that. So now you have an idea like, oh, it's charging, it's not charging, right? So you need to have an idea of what you have left. That way you can kind of plan out what you want for parking mode. And I do like that, but this is one of the extra added features of using a Thinkware IVOLT XTRA with a Thinkware dash camera. Obviously, you can still use this battery pack with other units. For instance, I do use it with Viofo quite frequently, but this is why, like I said, is the number one choice is because I use the ignition input. Now, let's move on to talk about the battery pack apps that come with them. So let's talk about the dashcam battery pack apps. So what I found is I was actually going to start doing the test and just take screenshots of what the proposed time left was on the app. And I thought that this would actually work really well. And I was posting it in the dashcam talk community when Vortex Radar actually pointed out to me saying, yeah, the apps with capacity and time estimates for all of the battery packs are all inaccurate, but just in different ways. It's odd that even though they are all selling batteries, they are all incorrect in different ways. So for testing purposes, he recommended that I just ignore what the app says and put a dash camera in low bit rate or time lapse or motion detection so I could see when the dash camera would stop recording and measure the old school way. It's time consuming, but it's necessary. And I actually took that and I appreciate that feedback because it made it a lot easier at the end of the day. And I got to say, it was very weird because the Blackvue said it had 75% left in terms of capacity, like usable time, and the Thinkware said 98%. But when it came down to the end of things, the Thinkware shut off about a half hour or so before the Blackvue, which just didn't make sense. And it was even to the point where the Thinkware IVOLT XTRA actually said there was no usable time left, and it lasted another 4 hours above what the app said when it was at 0%. So these apps are completely irrelevant. Probably the only thing that's even good about them is them telling you whether it's at 100% charge time. Other than that, I think they're kind of rendered kind of useless. Now, I will say this. This is one really good thing I found from the app. The output voltage is actually 12.9 and 13 volts, I believe, of the Blackvue and the Thinkware iVolt Extra. So we were having this big debate recently about the Viofo hardwire cable and how it doesn't have a low battery bypass. But the thing is, the low battery bypass doesn't matter because both these battery packs are outputting over 12 volts anyways. So realistically, you could even have this hardwire kit set at 12.4 volts, and according to the voltage that it's outputting on the battery pack, you wouldn't have that issue of the dash camera shutting off in parking mode. So I gotta say, that to me is awesome that we don't have to worry about that. And so if you're a Viofo user and you were worried about that, you don't need to, according to the specs. So why would I spend $300 to $500 on one of these battery packs when I could buy a portable power for like $20? Well, first things first, if you're buying one of these Korean brand dash cams like Thinkware, iRoad, GNet, FineView, Blackvue, just to name a few, typically they all use this style connector, and which means they have these wires on the other end, so they don't really plug into each other. So right out of the gate, those dash cameras are not going to work with these portable power, like the little portable packs that we'll use to power your cellular phone. So if you want to actually get one of these, and this is the route you want to go, and you want to go through the whole thing of plugging into your cigarette lighter, unplugging, and plugging directly into here, just so that you can actually power it up and not get one of these battery packs, well, there's a couple things you should know. One, I think you're going to have to buy about 2 or 3 of these units, because from what I can tell, it takes about 4 to 5 hours to charge one of these things. And when you get a battery pack, like an actual like Thinkware or a Blackvue, they're going to take, about 50 minutes on average of driving to fully charge them. They're already going to be installed in your vehicle, and you're not going to have to worry about it. You're just going to have to worry about driving in order to fully charge it. Well, with one of these, you're going to have to keep on plugging into your wall, charging them for a period of time, and then you have to take them, bring them back into your car, and make sure to plug these in order to actually have parking mode. So that to me, kind of a, I don't know, it's a waste of time, but at the same time, I do understand it's a lot less money. Now, how did it do? We actually tested this. So I actually plugged this one in. This one's rated at 10,000 milliamp hours, right? The battery packs we have here are rated at 7,500 milliamp hours. So this thing should easily destroy the Blackvue Thinkware. I mean, why wouldn't it? It's 10,000. This is 7,500. Well, guess what? This one lasted 12 hours. And do you know how long our battery pack lasted? 43 hours with the same dash camera. So we actually hooked up two Viofo Mini 2s, one to each, and we actually tested it. They draw on average about, according to what the app was saying, about 172 milliamps of current. So we're going to get about 43 hours on the battery pack and 12 hours on this. Now keep in mind, if you're doing like a Viofo A139 Pro, if you're doing a dash camera like front and rear that is USB, those typically are, or even like say a Vantrue N4 Pro, N5 Pro, those are over 400 milliamps of current, right? So let's talk about 400 milliamps of current. So now we're going to get maybe 6 hours, maybe 5 hours, maybe even less than that. Like an N4 Pro in 3-channel mode, I think was like 700 milliamps. So you're going to get what, like 3 hours of parking mode? So you're going to have to buy like, I don't know, 30,000 milliamp, 40,000 milliamp hours. So now you're going to be shooting up prices just so you can cover yourself for, let's call it like an 8-hour shift. So these are all things you're going to want to consider when purchasing one of these. Obviously, you're probably thinking, I'm just against it because I don't sell them. And it's not that I'm not against it. I mean, I can totally understand that some people are going to want to buy a portable battery pack. It's just, for me, I'm big on efficiency. You know, one of the core values with our company is efficiency. And if I have to take something and unplug it, plug it in every single time I get it in and out of the vehicle so that I have parking mode, to me that's not efficient, and it's not a really good resource of my time that I could be using when I can have something installed under my seat, hidden in my car, and it's going to charge automatically while I'm commuting to work. And I don't have to worry about it. I can go to work, and I know that that battery pack is going to do its job instead of, oh no, I forgot to charge the battery pack last night, so now I have no parking mode, right? And that's the last thing you want. You don't want to have those kind of worries of, oh, I don't know, my daughter unplugged it to charge her phone, and now the battery pack didn't get charged, so now I don't have parking mode coverage. These are things you just kind of want to consider when you're thinking about going this route. Now, if you do, like I said, make sure you get a bigger one, because if you are going to get one, it's only going to use with like a Viofo, Vantrue, I think 70Mi uses USB. So you have a couple of these different ones. Typically, it seems like a lot of the Chinese brands have that feature where you could plug them into a USB. So keep that in mind when you're looking to go this route. If you do have any questions, obviously leave them down below. I have done just a little bit of testing. There might be some better battery packs that maybe we didn't purchase that maybe do charge quicker than the 4 to 5 hours like we just recently tested. And, feel free to leave comments down about that. But like I said, I'm big on efficiency, and this is the way I would actually choose to operate. I hope you loved our video on dashcam battery pack and us putting it into ice to see how it reacts in cold weather, testing it against portable power. And anyways, feel free to leave your comments down below. If you do have any questions, feel free to leave them. We're here to help out. And don't forget to like and subscribe. If you are looking to support us, check us out, safedrivesolutions.com. And cheers.